Welcome to Ladies of Another View. I'm back, and I'm here today with Heidi and Lori. And you might recognize this guy on the end, Senator Kevin Cramer. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be with you.
And I just want to let people know that coming up later in the show, we're going to have Gwen Sebastian, who is a country singer from Hebron, North Dakota. She's in North Dakota for a fundraiser, and she's going to treat us to a song, too, so you don't want to miss that. You're the warm-up act, Senator Cramer.
Yeah, I feel unworthy, but I'm grateful.
Wow.
You can't beat country music, and especially if it's North Dakota born, right? The best. Brick City.
Well, we appreciate you coming in because there's so much to talk about. As a matter of fact, you just won a pro-life award last week from the North Dakota Right to Life, right? For your amazing record on pro-life.
Well, you know, I guess it's amazing in that it's 100% pro-life, but it's also rather ordinary in that Senator Hoeven and Congressman Armstrong also won the same award because we have a 100% pro-life, 100% congressional delegation. Because why? Because North Dakota is pro-life.
It means something.
It means something. It matters. So we're just a reflection of the people we work for. But it's nice to be recognized. More importantly, it's nice to be encouraged. And that's in politics, in our self-governed system, politicians need to be both held accountable by their constituents, and then our constituents should have our backs when you're doing the right thing. And that way you have a relationship that's strong and appropriate. So,
and it was called the Life Protector Award. And you really are protecting life, because I know some of the bills and causes that you've taken up include pregnant women.
Yeah.
That you just are for life in general. You're always and not afraid to speak up about it.
No, it's rather important that you speak up about it. You know, what's happened in a lot of politics, but the pro-life movement is a pretty good example. And frankly, the last election's probably, the best benchmark example there is. Pro-life people want to be pro-life, but they choose when and where to talk about it. People of faith. Christ told his disciples that, whoever speaks for me, I will speak for them, right, to my Father in heaven. Basically, that if you acknowledge me, I'll acknowledge you before my Father. If you don't, I won't. And so it matters. The proclamation matters, right? So on the pro-life part, I think it's not enough just to vote right and then hope no one finds out. I think it's to use your influence. We all have a circle of influence, and those of us that have a little bigger circle because our other people gave us this bigger circle, we have an obligation to speak to it. So I do speak to it. I think plus transparency is important. And so even people who disagree with me at least know where I stand, and we can have an honest discussion about it. One of the things in this last year, and let's face it, we've had a heck of a year in the pro-life movement with the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade. I think a lot of people thought, now we dodged that bullet, now we can just move on. The reality is no. The battle now goes to the states. And by the way, just because Roe v. Wade is overturned, doesn't mean that we shouldn't still be looking for protections for the unborn. And probably to the point you just made earlier on the pregnant mothers, that we also demonstrate our commitment and our conviction, particularly as people of faith, that we demonstrate compassion for the people involved in this situation. And so, one of the things that I introduced that I think got a lot of attention, and it was interesting, not all, but there was some blowback even from some conservatives, and that was the bill that would ensure that, and by the way, it was bipartisan, I got Democrats involved on it, is that pregnant women, that their child would have the support of the father.
I saw that. That was one of the ones I had questions on, I guess, is if you could give us more detail on that, because I was definitely very interested.
Yeah, so obviously if you're a single mom, and the father of your child has obligation. My bill simply makes those obligations immediately upon conception, which of course is the demonstration of life begins at conception. Now, some of the conservative pushback on that comes from people who think that deadbeat dads have been unfairly treated. So you can have that fight out here, but that's not relevant to when life begins and when your obligations as a parent, both a mother and a father, begin. And I just thought, for me, it was a way to say, okay, I'm pro-life, but we have to be looking out for the mother as well, not just simply, imposing this belief and then walking away.
Yeah, we just kind of had a conversation on this the other day with Mary, and I think it was Jan. But I like the look towards having the start right at the conception with both parents being involved with the care and concern through the medical costs, because that is definitely, as a mom who I have a almost 2-year-old, I'm probably the most recent one that has a small child, but it is crazy how much that cost is. So I appreciate that. How did that end up?
So of course, it never got a vote in the Senate. But what was interesting about it, and by the way, this is not uncommon. Lots of things start and then take years to accomplish.
Right.
Particularly in the Senate, the founders were very successful in creating a slow chamber. But what happened was discussions like this, and with liberals, people who are pro-choice or pro-abortion, they care about the mother too. Remember, they'll oftentimes use that as the reason that they're pro is concern for the mother. So they have a hard time arguing this case, but they don't want to be seen in the wrong light. But you guys, I've always believed, and I become more convicted of this every day I'm in Congress. Not every transaction has to have a loser. Some transactions can be a winner and a winner if you fashion them right. And I think this discussion ultimately could lead to that.
And I always have one question about this, when you have the father pay or compensate what, at conception, then there's always that talk about, well, they don't have any choice because like if they're pro-life, because the woman is carrying the child, they don't have any say. I mean, where do we?
Which is why being pro-life sort of takes that off the table anyway.
Yes.
Right. So we're looking out for the child, and in this case, while we've looked out for the child, we also want to show compassion to the mother. And I believe that the compassionate side, this is where the movement itself gets to take some credit, because if some people just see us as a bunch of mean-spirited ogres that want to impose our belief on innocent people, then we lose the bigger argument, which is the heart. We can win a legislative fight and lose the heart. We need to win the heart.
And that's one of the things whenever we talk about the pro-life, and we've had post-abortive women on here quite a few times, is that it's the pro-life side that embraces them, that are willing to forgive, whereas the pro-abortion side is like, we don't want to hear it, but we are the pro-woman side because we want to give them the support so that they can have their babies. So it's insane that these pregnancy centers are being vandalized. Like, wait a minute, I thought you were pro-women. I thought you were pro-choice. Why are you attacking this choice? So that is really a big part of it. And I think I love what you say, because if you're looking out for the pregnant woman and they have to face the reality, well, she is pregnant. Who's she pregnant with? She's pregnant with a child. And we're also looking out for that child's well-being. So it does create kind of a little bit of schizophrenia in them, because because that's what happens when you are denying reality, when you are denying life. That's just going to be inconvenient truths.
Yeah, I'm always for the education and the responsibility part, right? Because I like you, I appreciate that, Bill, because I feel like it should be both sides, that should be taking care of all of it. So
our witness is carried out in what we do as much as it is in what we say, probably more so.
Amen. You're good at this, You
might have a future in this.
When we come back, we have a lot of other quick questions we're going to want to get Senator Cramer's take on, so stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on BEK, and once again, welcome back to our guest, Republican U.S. Senator Kevin Cramer. Thank you for being on the show. We did have the show during the break, so we're going to try to catch the audience up here. I want to start with Fufeng in Grand Forks. They want a Chinese-connected, CCP-connected company that wants to put a corn processing plant just like a little over a dozen miles from our U.S. Air Force Base, a high-security Air Force Base. And there was a CFIUS review, and CFIUS stands for the Committee on Foreign Investments in the U.S. So they're supposed to be looking out for our national security, making sure any kind of foreign entities buying land, that we're not at risk. They sat on it for 3 months and then said, oh, I guess we don't have jurisdiction over this. You've expressed publicly great disappointment. catch us up on this. Like, what's the
So
next step?
you're right. So the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States is made up of about 15 agencies, some of them cabinet level, and it's headed up by the Treasury Department. And that's important to note because obviously it's investment oriented. So Treasury, Department of Commerce, but it's largely made up of National Security Council, actually the intelligence community in general, and the defense community and Homeland Security, for again, what would seem to be obvious reasons, right? And then it's agriculture and a couple of others. And there's some that are more situational depending on what they're looking at. However, not surprising to a big agricultural state like North Dakota, agricultural investments have always had a little bit of a different standing, and largely have, I can't say they're exempt, but they're oftentimes sort of they get waivers easier, shall we say. Now that said, because we're yes, North Dakotans, we understand the importance of people's own property and being able to do what they want with their own property. Private property rights is an important part of our system. But when it comes to Chinese Communist Party and whatnot, we need to review that. And we can get to that later if you want. But CFIUS did, the company, actually, Fufeng, asked for a CFIUS review. Now, it's somewhat unclear because there is a lot of secrecy that shrouds the CFIUS process. It could be that somebody triggered something along the way that said, oh, wait a minute, this is China, the airbase, proximity, those things. There are certain criteria that can even make an ag investment, more subject. So all of that at play, CFIUS takes it on and they start reviewing it. The city, first of all, the city asked them to as well. They joined after the fact. They joined in the request. And then Senator Hoeven and I, along with Senator Rubio, and Marco Rubio is the ranking Republican on the Intelligence Committee, we wrote a letter in support of the CFIUS project. Now, as I've said all along, I said months before CFIUS, I said during CFIUS, and I said after CFIUS. I don't care what CFIUS says. This is a bad idea. You don't have to be the head of the CIA to know that Communist China is a bad actor. And my fundamental philosophy on China has become, along with a lot of others, and I think this is an evolving position for people, that we should be looking to decouple ourselves from China more and more, not find more ways to. But my objection immediately to the corn milling facility was based less on the Air Force Base and as much and maybe more on the fact that we don't want China taking more control of critical supply chains in our country. We just went through a pandemic where their control of pharmaceutical supplies and food, by the way, China is a major owner of one of the 3 large meat processing facilities in the United States. So there are certain things we should not give up our control of. And pharmaceuticals, energy, minerals, and food certainly are among them. So I'm right out of the chute. I didn't like this idea. And so my opinion hasn't changed. To CFIUS and their decision ultimately after the first 45 days, which is in their law, in their rules, and then they added some days after that because they didn't have complete information. They felt that Fufeng was holding out on them. And they were right, probably. And so it ended up being about 60 days or so, 3 months in terms of full months. And they decided they didn't have jurisdiction. And I believe that that's because the Department of Justice lawyers, which drive all litigation in the country, by the way, all federal litigation is subject to the Department of Justice. Another reason not to like the department, if you need it. And so I reject that out of pocket. There are other lawyers that I know well that have concluded that they're wrong, that they took too narrow a view of their jurisdictional standards. Greta Van Susteren was one of those lawyers who said, no, they took the narrowest view they could take in opinion, and
So
they passed the buck.
is it correct that they decided that because it was an agricultural purchase that's kind of the project?
Very astute question. I think that's part of it, but I think it's also there's some definitions related to proximity to the Air Force Base, and I'm going to be careful because I did ask for not one but 2 classified briefings, one from CFIUS and one from the Department of the Air Force. I received both of them, and Senator Hoeven joined me in both of those. In fact, a whole bunch of senators joined me in the first one, including the chairman of the banking committee, because I'm on banking and we oversee
Mhm.
Obviously Treasury. So chairman of the banking committee, Sherrod Brown, Democrat from Ohio, and the ranking member, Pat Toomey from Pennsylvania, the chairman of the intelligence committee, Mark Warner, Democrat from Virginia, and Marco Rubio, the Republican, and Senator Hoeven and me, and then and Senator Cornyn, who really basically wrote the legislation that created CFIUS. We all sat through a very intense briefing. It was not just top secret, but it was top secret SCI. So that's the next level up. And then the next day we did it with the Air Force and intelligence folks. And that briefing went all the way to the next level up to SAPS, that's Special Operations. Special Operations, Special Access Programs. And so that's the highest level that there is that we can even participate in. All of that to say, here's what I can tell you. And I asked specifically the lawyers, when I leave this SCIF, can I say this? That your determination that you didn't have jurisdiction is in no way a judgment on the merits of this investment. They said, you can absolutely say that. We are not passing any judgment. In other words, it was not a green light.
So it sounds like there's
but
concern.
the news, like I saw in the Grand Forks Herald, they acted it like it was a green
Yes,
light.
they did.
Yeah.
Like now we're cleared,
All is
but we're
clear.
not clear. Is there anything else going on? Because you are having the same impression just about everybody else I know who hears about it. It's like, well, that's not a good idea. So how can where are the teeth? Where can somebody stop this
I'm
from
trying to stay in
happening?
my seat. So a couple of things. First of all, there's a lot more to do. There's a lot more that's going on. I'd like to be able to get a state official enough clearance to get a little bit of a classified briefing. They probably can't get the level we did. For sure they can. But maybe we could get them some sort of temporary ability to hear some. Having sat through those two briefings, having asked lots of questions, and Senator Tom Cotton was in the one briefing with us. Really smart, intelligent people with a lot of experience in this area. There is nothing that I heard that alleviates my concern whatsoever, and I heard plenty that only confirms my concerns.
So plainly
we're
a bad
actually
idea.
out of time. But we're not done talking about this.
Yeah.
I want to keep talking about this because, in Texas, it was the state legislators that passed a bill that stopped it because it wasn't happening at the local level. It wasn't happening at the federal level. We need to figure out, like, who's doing anything to stop it.
Sure.
And we have to.
Oh, I'd love to
Our
carry
time
on
is
about
up.
that. You just beware. You do not want members of Congress making local decisions. Just so you know, even if it makes a lot of sense one time, it's just not a path we want to go.
No, I really think we need to look to our state legislators. But anyways, thank you, Senator Cramer, for being here today. And let's continue to have this conversation. You can come on any time of the day, or I should say any day of the week. Just let us know when you're in town.
I'm real good about 6 a.m.
I think we come in. We have such few producers. We do early taping.
We do.
You're not off the hook. We can still get
We'll
to
do it.
that.
I'm happy
Yeah.
to do it anytime it works.
So
for all of
firmly
us.
he says, stop,
Yep.
don't do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes.
There you go.
Okay. Well, thank you, Senator Kramer,
My pleasure. Thank you.
and for all your work.
Thank
So we appreciate it.